Come on. Come get some if you come get some. Shalom. Shalom, everybody. Shalom. Welcome back to Reading with Shilo.
Welcome back to Reading with DJ.
We're here with the next edition to Barak and Deborah United, Chapter 5 and Chapter 6 of Barak and Deborah United by Mary L.WINDSOR and Dr. Rudolph R.WINDOR. And so far it's getting good. We left off, Barak was talking to Eleazar, the priest, in Shilo. He went and seen him at the tabernacle. And it was talking about Deborah. Well, here we go. Chapter 5. They went, oh, my bad. They were talking to Deborah, but they left the tabernacle and they went to Ariel's house for dinner so they could talk further. There we go. Chapter 5. They went to a stone structure about 30 feet from where they were. There was beautiful green shrubbery planted around the sides and front. As they walked along the beige stone walkway towards the building, Deborah could see a replica of the 10 Commandments engraved over the front door. Then she read the 9th commandment in a low voice. Thou shalt not bear false witness against thy neighbor. The rest of the judges heard her reading and looked at her with approval. After they finished the serious deliberations and reached a decision, they agreed to let Deborah render the summation of the case, and they returned to the court area outside. The news about Deborah traveled rapidly, and she noticed that the crowd increased in size as she looked around the crowd area. May I please have your attention? The court of Beersheba is now back in session, proclaimed one of the officers. You may begin, Deborah, the head judge urged. Deborah walked up front and began to speak. First of all, I call this case the Ghost Man. We have a complete description of an alleged evil man who is supposed to have committed adultery with Zedekiah, but we did not know his whereabouts. It is doubtful that he even exists at all, which I shall demonstrate. The chief judge said, continue, Deborah. The facts and truth of this case, Deborah explained, hangs only on the testimony of the 2 witnesses, Catan and Ishmael. First of all, Ishmael testified that he saw the defendant kissing under a fig tree, and Catan said that it was under an olive tree. The answer renders their testimonies void. Aha, gasped the entire crowd. Second of all, Ishmael testified that the clothes of the stranger were light blue, and Catan testified that they were white. This is a contradiction that renders their testimonies again void. Again, the audience shouted, aha. Point number 3. Ishmael testified that the act took place before sunset, and Catan stated that it happened after sunset. This discrepancy renders their testimonies void again because everyone knows the difference between before sunset and after sunset. In view of this, the prosecutor calls these men reliable witnesses. This case has all of the signs of a frame-up. From all of the evidence presented in this case, we must conclude. No, sir, no chips. We must conclude that the man who was alleged to have committed adultery with Zedekiah does not exist at all. Judge Shilo interrupted Ishmael. We are men of high standing in this town. Are you going to let this woman stand here and humiliate us? The chief judge stared at him. Pertaining to the truth, our law has no respect for gender. If you feel humiliated, then it's your guilt that has seized you. What? You mean that you are going against us? Your lies and wickedness have blinded and condemned you. This court finds you and Catan guilty of being false witnesses. What you and Catan sought to do to Zedekiah, so shall it be done to you. Then Ishmael stared at the judge with a hateful look. Cursed be the day you were born. You will pay for this. No, Shalom snapped back. You will pay for your transgressions and lies. You have accused Zedekiah falsely, and now you have reviled the judge of Israel. Officers of the court, seize the false witnesses. As the officers escorted the false witnesses away, the crowd stood up in an uproar and shook their fists at the prisoners. Then Shalom rose to his feet and raised his hands above his head. The crowd became quiet and listened attentively. Sit down, DJ, so you can listen attentively. And then he sat back down. You have heard the evidence in this case. It is the decision of this court. It is the decision of this court is that no charges be brought against Benjamin Ben-Hur. Moreover, the defendant, Zedekiah Abraham, will be set free. As for Ishmael and Catan, their wickedness and lies have condemned them. Furthermore, let it be proclaimed from here northward to the tribe of Dan that these two men have been convicted for bearing false witness against a daughter of Israel. This we do in order to remove evil from our people. Also, we want to give thanks to our God for sending us our beloved sister Deborah, whose knowledge, wisdom, and fortitude help to exonerate the innocent and convict the guilty. This court is now dismissed. Then the chief judge stood up with a satisfied look on his face. Shortly thereafter, Deborah went over to meet with Zedekiah. As soon as she saw Deborah, she embraced her and smiled. Thank you so much, Deborah. You are a godsend. Without you, I did not know what I would have done. Oh, would you like to come over to my house for dinner tonight? Yes, I'd like that. During supper, we'll have plenty of time to talk, added Zedekiah anxiously. There's more, isn't it? Asked Deborah. Yes, I'll see you this evening, said Zedekiah and walked away. After a few minutes, Deborah walked over to where the chief judge was standing. Seeing her, he walked in her direction and spoke. I want to congratulate you on your great performance on interrogating witnesses. You are a credit to our people and our way of life. I wish you much success in all your endeavors. By the way, I will be sending a special report to the council of the 70 elders in Shilo. Thank you, Your Honor, for allowing me to assist in this trial, and Deborah walked away. Just before supper, Zedekiah's husband returned home from his business trip, and Zedekiah introduced Deborah to him. When the meal was finished, Zedekiah's husband went into the study to review his contracts. While the two ladies were alone, Zedekiah revealed to Deborah the reason the two men wanted to frame her. After her visit with Zedekiah and her brother, Deborah returned to her home outside of the city of Bethel. No, sir. No, sir. You can sit over there while Daddy's reading. No. Well, hey. I don't know what to tell you. You can sit over there while I'm reading, or you can play with your toys, or you could draw. Well, that's on you, my boy. When Ariel, the senior elder of the Supreme Court, had finished telling this story, he looked at Barak and said, that court case in Beersheba was the starting point that began to push Deborah to national fame among the tribes of Israel. After that, people from many tribes came to her for judgment, knowledge, counsel, spiritual advice, and inspiration. Her audience included men and women, but many women came for special reasons because it was said that they could confide in her concerning intimate issues. In short, the people knew that in Deborah, they had an understanding and a receptive ear. She was open, accessible, and humble. These were her spiritual qualities as they are written in our sacred scrolls. Barak lowered his head, scratched his eyebrows, and looked perplexed. Wait a second, my dear elder. Let's back up for a moment. There seems to be something missing about the court case in Beersheba. Was it ever revealed who those two wicked men brought false charges? Why those two wicked men brought false charges against Zedekiah? Yes, I'm glad you asked me about it. When Deborah went to Zedekiah's house for dinner that night, Deborah asked her, did she have any idea why those two men wanted to frame her? This is what was revealed. You must understand that these two men have been coming to her house to discuss business with her husband. This is how they knew Zedekiah. Zedekiah was a beautiful woman, not quite 30 years old. As time passed, their minds were drawn to her with lust. So one day, when they knew her husband was not at the house, they came and pleaded with her to lie with them. But she refused. Finally, after she had turned them down many times, they said to her, if you do not lie with us, we shall tell the judges that we saw you commit adultery with a stranger. Those evil men, asserted Barak, as he took a deep breath with disbelief, shaking his head. At that moment, the servant brought in the water basin with a towel, bread, very warm beans, cut corn simmered with onions and olive oil, vegetable salad, and hot roasted, juicy lamb chops, and placed them in front of Barak. Wow, he shouted as he breathed the aroma through his nose. After the recitation of the recitation of the blessing of the bread, Barak took a spoonful of fried, fresh, creamy corn and exclaimed, "This is delicious." Sound good, boy. Sound good.
Sound good for me.
It sound good for me too.
Sound good for DJ.
That's right. During the course of the meal, Barak reflected again on the two accusers of Zedekiah, and his spirit was troubled. He started to take a bite from the tender lamb chop that was in his hand, but paused. Why didn't Zedekiah testify in court that her accusers wanted her to lie with them? Good question, commented Ariel. Zedekiah knew that her husband had a very special business deal with two businessmen, and she didn't want to say anything that would disrespect their arrangement, that would disrupt their arrangement. And she didn't want to say anything that would disrupt their arrangement. In view of this, Zedekiah didn't even tell her own husband that the businessmen wanted to lie with her. Somehow, she had hoped that the men would leave her alone. You see, Zedekiah knew that the business deal meant a lot to her husband, and that's why she didn't want to reveal anything during the trial that these men wanted to lie with her. She was hoping somehow that the case would be thrown out of court and the men would be set free. Well, wasn't the business deal still in jeopardy during the trial, asked Barak? Not really. The special business deal that her husband had was not with her two accusers, but with two other men. But Zedekiah didn't learn of this fact until after the trial, when her husband came home. Oh, what an interesting trial that was in Beersheba. I wish I had been there. Incidentally, Ariel, how did you manage to remember all of the details of this trial? I received the written report from Judge Shilo and some information from Deborah. Then Barak took a bite from the piece of lamb chop and continued eating the rest of his food, sopping the bread in the bowl. You mentioned earlier that there were other social conditions that contributed to the rise and fame of Deborah. What are they? He inquired. It was the complete breakdown of the political, religious, and social structure of the Israelite nation. You must understand that after the death of Moses, Joshua, and the elders that outlived Joshua, there was no central leadership or king in Israel that had witnessed the miracles and experiences that our ancestors had faced in Egypt and in the wilderness. It seems that this was truly a dark time for our people, Barak commented. Yes, and during the time of Moses and Joshua, during the time that Moses and Joshua led the Hebrews in the wilderness, all the Israelite tribes were encamped around the tabernacle, the shrine of our central leadership. All the tribes looked to the tabernacle for leadership and guidance because Moses, Joshua, the high priest, and the council of the 70 elders were there. However, after Joshua had completed the distribution of the land to each tribe in Israel, everything changed. The tribes were no longer encamped around the tabernacle, but were remote from it. At this time, Barak looked at the pomegranate tree in the courtyard with its bright green lance-shaped leaves and reddish-orange flowers, and commented, "Also, my tribe is remote from the tabernacle." Barak confirmed. And we have the same problems that you are explaining. Many elders, heads of tribes, and judges stubbornly refuse to come to the tabernacle here at Shilo to seek advice, guidance, and instructions from the Lord, from the high priest, and from the council of the 70 elders. Many of the people did what they thought was right in their own eyes. Many of the people did what was right in their own eyes. They should have asked for advice from the elders at the tabernacle who knew more than them, but they didn't. When Elder Ariel paused, Barak leaned forward and spoke. I can recall my father saying to me, "Remember the days of old. Consider the years of many generations. Ask thy father, and he will show thee, thy elders, and they will tell thee." The elder placed his hand on Barak's shoulder and praised him. "Barak, you are blessed to have a good father. Many children are not as fortunate as you. Good fathers give a head start in life to their children. Either we prepare them for a good future, or by our neglect, we prepare them for failure in a life of crime." You are so right. The elder leaned toward Barak. When you are training your young men for war, remember to teach them also how to be good fathers. Above all, let me mark that. Barak, when the elder paused, Barak leaned forward and spoke. I recall my father saying, "Remember the days of old." All right, hold on, excuse me. Let me take a pause. Come on, let's go pee. Hurry up. Come on. You better get your butt out of my chair. Get out of my chair. All right. When Elder Ariel paused, Barak leaned forward and spoke. I can recall my father saying to me, "Remember the days of old. Consider the years of many generations. Ask thy father, and he will show thee, thy elders, and they will tell thee." The elder placed his hand on Barak's shoulder and praised him. "Barak, you are blessed to have a good father." Many children are not as fortunate as you. We're going to give Yadi some food in a minute. Let me see. You better not mess with it. Many children are not as fortunate as you. Good fathers give a head start in life to their children. Either we prepare them for a good future, or by our neglect, we prepare them for failure and a life of crime. What are you trying to do? You trying to put it back? Okay, let's place it back. See the dinosaurs? I'll move it in the middle. Oh, hold on. Okay, push it all the way in. There you go. All right. Good fathers give a head start in life to their children. Either we prepare them for a good future, or by our neglect, we prepare them for failure and a life of crime. You are so right. The elder leaned towards Barak. When you're training your young men for war, remember to teach them also how to be good fathers. Above all, be a good example in everything you do, because our sons and daughters are watching. Our sons and daughters are watching. Mom. Above all, be a good example in everything you do, because our sons and daughters are watching us. I have reached almost 80 years. I don't know what that is. No ball. It looks like a ball. I see a ball. I have reached almost 80 years. I give less notice to what people say. I just observe what they do. Elder Ariel, what is the most important thing to teach our young men and boys in order for them to be good husbands, fathers, and to stay out of trouble? No, sir. This is digressing from our main subject. Hey, calm down. Calm down. I see, but I'm not sure what it is. Let Daddy finish reading, all right? Sit. Thank you. This is digressing from our main subject. Nevertheless, I shall answer your question because it is important. The simplest way to develop good husbands and fathers is to teach and prepare the males while they are young. Then, when they reach marital age, they will already know how to be good husbands and fathers. Next, we must teach them to honor God, parents, and neighbors and their property. Afterward, we must teach them that marriage and lying down with a female is a big responsibility, because crying babies are the result. Because crying babies are the result. In addition, we must prepare our sons to learn a vocation or trade and to acquire property or a business before marriage. Later, they will be in a better position to support a wife and children. When a father has a trade or business, he can teach his sons how to operate it. This fulfills the words of God, as it is written in the scrolls of Deuteronomy. And thou shalt teach them diligently unto thy children, as thou sittest in thy house, and when thou walkest by the way. Barak looked at him with a satisfied look on his face. Elder Ariel continued, now Barak, what was the last part of your question? What was the last part of your question? Barak looked at him and smiled. It was about the things to teach our young men to get them to stay out of trouble. Oh yes, we must teach constantly until they learn the difference between right and wrong. Many parents don't take the time to teach their children because they are too busy with other matters. Consequently, the children get neglected and have to raise themselves without guidance. To make sure our sons and daughters stay out of trouble, you must show them a lot of love, looking after their welfare, considering their interests, having patience with them, involving them in activities that are good for them. The boys and girls will grow up to be good and successful. This is achieved best under the supervision of the parents. As you explain these things, I realize that there is a lot of work to be done, and I promise to be a good example to my men and others. Yes, Barak. After that comment, the elder continued with his main topic before Barak interrupted him. You must understand, Barak, that the leadership of the Hebrews became corrupt from the top to bottom. From the top to bottom. They took bribes, committed idolatry, adultery, robbery, convicted the innocent, and let the guilty go free. In essence, the people corrupted themselves in every way possible. Yes, sir. Now I understand more than before the reason Deborah sent me here to obtain the certificate of authority. It is good that you understand. At this time, I shall continue. Our people did evil in the sight of the Lord. They saw no unity among themselves, no central leadership, no justice, no righteousness, no mercy, no harmony, no peace, and no no moral example of how a decent person should live. Our people emulated the bad practices of the Moabites, the Ammonites, the Philistines, and the Canaanites. For example, the Hebrews cut their flesh and marked up their skin like the Canaanites. Their social structure based on the law completely crumbled. Distrust, jealousy, despair, and hopelessness were the norms of the day. Despising themselves, the Hebrews rejected their history and culture. Should sound like today. Hey, if you about to go to sleep, go over there. Go sit over there, my boss. Oh well, go sit over there. At that moment, Barak stood up and shook his head in disgust. What are you saying? I see this condition everywhere I go. How sad it is. You gotta go pee. All right, excuse me again. Get out of my chair. Get out of my chair. What up, Peter? Where was I? All right. At that moment, Barak stood up and shook his head in disgust. What are you saying? I see this condition everywhere I go. How sad it is. There's not much that is good in life for the decent people to emulate. The good people look around the country and they see mostly corruption in government, exploitation of the poor, lewdness, negativity, vulgarity in speech and in dress. I'll give you a parable to illustrate my point. Hey, be quiet. No, sir. When I'm done, then we'll go outside and we'll give y'all some food.
That's right.
Do you understand, man? All right. I'll give you a parable to illustrate my point. There was once a great ship that was wrecked in a storm on the great sea. All the sailors drowned except 2 men who managed to survive in a small boat. The storm finally subsided, and for 2 days the boat drifted under the hot sun, and the men became very thirsty. Then one sailor scooped up some water from the sea with the palms of his hands and gulped it down. Shortly afterwards, he became sick and said to the other sailor, "There is plenty of water all around us, but none good to drink. Now, Barak, what does the water symbolize?" Barak stared at him. Later, he looked away in the direction of the tall evergreen tree that stood by the high wall. He thought for a short while and turned towards Elder Ariel. "I think that the salt water represents the evil and misguided people among us." Yes, the evil and misguided people among us. You are so right, Barak. The few good people are tempted to follow the bad examples of others because it has become popular. Evilness and crime run rampant in our communities because law-abiding and moral-minded people refuse to take action to stop it. They are afraid to speak up, but speak up they must, or else life will become too unbearable and dangerous. Barak gritted his teeth and said, "I understand and agree with you. We leaders have a big responsibility. If we want to change things to change, we must organize, speak out, and take action. I want to change things, but there is a lot of opposition. Indeed, you must realize, Barak, it was all of these evil conditions that contributed to the rise and fame of Deborah. The time is right for her. She became the welcomed cool breeze that came after a long hot spell of hopelessness. Your Excellency, I can listen to you all day and night. I am so sorry to disappoint you," Barak, he chuckled, "but the days are for you to listen and the nights are for me to sleep." Barak smiled and continued, "Why don't more leaders of the various tribes come up to the tabernacle for instructions?" Ariel sighed with a deep breath and paused. The heads of the individual tribes and the elders of the various towns became self-centered. They became infatuated and protective of their own petty tribal authority and power. Barak interrupted and made the following observation: that is an example of how too much power corrupts. You are so right, Prince Barak. Now I shall continue with my thoughts. Many times local leaders retain the tithe for themselves and refuse to give it to the central leadership. If they have given this tithe, they would have helped to make the government at the tabernacle much stronger. Instead, it grew weaker and weaker. In short, the tribal leadership became too haughty. They interpreted the sacred laws according to what they thought was right in their own eyes and for their own personal gain, and it did not benefit the people. Elder Ariel, I see that you possess great knowledge. Thank you for your words of praise, but I hope I have acquired also a little wisdom. You have, Barak assured him without hesitation. The high priest of the Supreme Court of the 70 judges at the tabernacle did not intend for the interpretation of our holy scrolls to rest in the hands of the individual tribes. These supreme judges were the men of the higher knowledge established by the great prophet. The scroll of Deuteronomy instructs us in this regard. If there is a matter too hard for thee, then thou shalt arise and get thee up into the place which the Lord thy God shall choose. The place is the tabernacle, said Ariel. Now that you mentioned it, it makes sense, Barak admitted. And some of the leadership of my tribes also are guilty of not going up to the tabernacle to seek guidance from the Supreme Court. I'm going to put it very simple, young man. And I say young man because I am more than twice your age. When the elders of the various tribes rejected the guidance of the learned men at the tabernacle, they rejected knowledge. And when they rejected knowledge, they rejected God. And when they rejected God, God rejected them. Consequently, I have delivered the Hebrews into the hands of their enemies, the Canaanites, to punish them for their transgression, just as a parent punishes their child when they do something wrong. In view of all these evil conditions, many of our people were ready for change, ready for something better, ready for righteous spiritual leadership, and Deborah was right there to give it to them. An extraordinary lady named, remarked Barak as he yawned. I have one last question, Elder Barak. Excuse me, Elder Ariel. Some of my soldiers ask me how they can get wealth. Can you give me some advice for them? The elder yawned, stretched, placed his hands behind his head, and stared into Barak's eyes for a while, and then spoke slowly. I can explain, but wealth is not the important thing. Good health, happiness, and helping others is more important. Now, concerning wealth, the answer I give you may not be the answer they want to hear. He paused. The way to get wealth is to give first. Then it will return to you many fold from other sources, from another source. I'll use a parable to convey my complete answer. First, pursue the lady of knowledge and pursue the lady of wisdom, and use that knowledge and wisdom to help mankind. Afterwards, the lady of wealth will get jealous and pursue you. He said with a smile on his face. Let's read that one again. First, pursue the lady of knowledge and pursue the lady of wisdom, and use that knowledge and wisdom to help mankind. Afterwards, the lady of wealth will get jealous and pursue you. He said with a smile on his face, my dear elder, I am sure that our young soldiers will be delighted to be pursued by this pretty lady. Yes, that would be the natural reaction of our young men. But oh, one last thing, Barak. Tell your soldiers that they aren't truly rich until they have something that gold shekels and silver talents cannot buy. You can't buy good health, happiness, or true love. However, when you have these three things, you are truly wealthy. Barak expressed surprise. I like that answer. You are a fountain of wisdom. At that moment, the elder nodded off to sleep and went shitty outside. You sleep outside. When you can sleep outside like that. At that moment, the elder nodded off to sleep. And when he opened his eyes, he stood up and stretched. Oh, Barak, your daytime for listening has passed, and the night has come. Now it is time for me to go to sleep. Barak rose to his feet, bowed, looked at the elder, and smiled. I thank you very much for giving me so much of your precious time. After this discussion, Ariel asked Barak to sleep overnight at his house, and the next morning Barak continued on his journey to the city of Kadesh in Naphtali. Chapter 6. Chapter 6. 1 month later, on the 5th day of the week, 2 days before the beginning of the Hebrew Sabbath, Deborah received the letter from Barak. The letter was in the form of a rolled up piece of parchment, which he had deposited in a pouch made of animal hide. As she lay on her bed, Sarah, her handmaid, handed her a pouch. She wondered if anything had happened to Barak. Deborah opened it and read from right to left, as it was the custom of the Hebrews. Peace be unto you, Deborah. I hope you are well. It seems like it has been a year since the last time I saw you. I stopped by the tabernacle and had a long informative discussion with Ariel, the elder. He gave me the certificate of authority, which I requested thanks to you. Also, I would like to inform you that we had a skirmish with the Canaanite company of soldiers. We lost 3 men and I was slightly wounded on my right arm, but I am much better now. So much for the unpleasant news. I have been thinking about you every week. I wish I was there with you right now. I miss your presence, your smile, your beauty, and your tenderness. By the way, your name has become a household word and your fame has spread all over the northern tribes. People have nicknamed you Mother Deborah. In closing, I hope there's a place in your heart for me. I'll see you soon as I can. Peace be with you, your friend Barak. As Deborah lay on her bed, she reflected on Barak's letter with mixed feelings. After her morning prayer and meditation, she finished the breakfast that her handmaid served her. My lady, is there anything that I can do for you before I leave for the market? Asked Sarah, as she held the pot.
I found one.
Good job, good job. All right. As she held the pot in her hand. No, but wait for me. We'll go together. Nakshan, the gatekeeper, prepared the donkeys for the market. He took several sacks for the storage rooms and placed them over the backs of the donkeys. And these sacks, they usually put the food and other items they bought. At that moment, Nakshan said to Deborah, when we reach the city of Bethel, I want to stay near you to give you closer protection. Why do you say that, Nakshan? Well, the last time I was in Bethel, I heard some men say that they didn't like you poking into men's affairs. In that case, stand nearby and stay alert. The 5th day of the week was the most important shopping day because the next day was the beginning of the Sabbath among the Hebrews. The Sabbath began in the evening, the day before the actual Sabbath day. Most people had their cleaning and cooking completed by high noon on the 6th day of the week. Sarah and Deborah walked together, and Nakshan remained behind 5 or 10 paces to allow the women some privacy for women talk. Go sit over there, please, sir.
Where's the toy?
I don't know.
You don't know?
No, sir. It's in the toy box somewhere. You have to look through the toys. Oh, excuse me. Sarah and Deborah walked together, and Nakshan remained behind 5 or 10 paces to allow the women to have some privacy for women talk. As they walked, Deborah noticed a flock of blackbirds eating worms and insects from among the grass. When Deborah's retinue approached, let's see what that is. Retineu. I know I've seen that before. Retinue. R-E-T. Retinue. 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 A group of retainers or attendants. Retinue. Retinue. Yeah, lost one page. When Deborah's retinue approached, the leading bird flew away, and the rest followed. Nakshan then spoke. Deborah, if you and Sarah are getting tired, I'll be happy to help you on the donkeys. Thank you, Nakshan, but we need to exercise to help us keep in good shape. Shit. Wish a lot of women would do that now. They continued on their way to the city of Bethel, about 1.5 miles down the road that connected Jerusalem to Shechem. It was at Bethel that this road intersected with the east-west road that led from Jericho to the Mediterranean Sea. Bethel was a thriving town long before the arrival of the Hebrews. It had many houses, shops with pavements, and a sanctuary. There was an adjacent mound and several springs where the local inhabitants could get fresh water. Deborah was in deep thought as she walked along the main road to Bethel. For the first half mile of the walk, there was no conversation between the women. Sarah looked at Deborah, but she held her peace for a while. Then, as they walked a little further, they could see the city of Bethel off into the distance. Deborah, I don't want to appear prying, but is there something troubling, my lady? Sarah asked softly and cautiously. Deborah held her peace and looked up at the great clouds. I have a lot on my mind today, she said, guardedly, not intending to reveal too much. She stepped up the pace of her walk, leaving Sarah a few steps behind. They passed palm and sycamore trees as they walked. Sarah was a woman at least 15 years past childbearing age, and she had worked many years for Deborah's late husband. She had a slender build, and she was about 17 years older than Deborah. 47. My lady, I had worked for you and your late husband for many years, and I have tried to be a good servant. Seeing you like this causes me great concern. Please, I beseech you, tell me, thy humble servant, what troubles you. It is about the letter you received this morning, isn't it? Yes, she said reluctantly. Would thy handmaid be wrong in saying that the letter is from the handsome man with the mustache that came to our house on the last full moon? No, you are not wrong. The letter came from him, answered Deborah, looking at Sarah with amazement. They began to enter into the central section of the city of Bethel. There were many shops, inns, houses. Some houses had stone steps on the outside that went up to the second floor. Others had courtyards with plants and trees inside. In addition, men, women, and children were walking in the outside market area, leading their donkeys, camels, and asses along the way. The Hebrew people were bumping into each other, not watching where they were going because they were gazing at the fresh produce, meats, animal hide, rope, pottery, beads, and clothing. In many parts of Israel, as well as in the city of Bethel, the Hebrew population contained a mixture of colors: dark brown, tan, yellow, and white. This variety of colors resulted from the mixture of whites with brown skin, Hebrews, and other Semites in Syria, Assyria, Palestine, and Egypt. These whites came from the region around the Caspian and the Black Sea in southern Russia. In the Middle East, these Europeans were known as Hurrians. In Egypt, the Hurrians introduced the chariot and established the 15th and 16th dynasties. However, the Egyptians didn't call them Hurrians, but Hyksos, or shepherd kings. The word Hyksos is a corruption of the Egyptian words Heka Keshwet, which means rulers of foreign lands. They ruled northern Egypt from 1720 to 1575 BC. All over the Near East and Egypt, these Hurrians amalgamated with Canaanites, Hebrews, and the Semites and adopted some of their culture. In addition, when the Pharaoh Thutmose I expelled the Hyksos from Egypt, many Hebrews left with them. This fact is confirmed by other scholars in Hebrew records, which states that, and a mixed multitude went up also with them. Everyone could see the mixed multitude in the marketplace of Bethel. The marketplace for many was a good place to come for shopping, but it also served the purpose for gossip. People could meet old friends, talk about their personal concerns, discuss something new, and watch the strangers going and returning from Egypt, Arabia, Moab, Syria, and Tyre. Moreover, there were Greeks from Europe and Circassians from southern Russia who were shopping in the marketplace. These travelers were headed to Egypt. Deborah sensed that Sarah wanted to talk more about the letter she received, but the congestion, the crowd, the conversation, and the greetings of the people kept Deborah busy. She also had her shopping to do, so they didn't have much time to discuss personal matters. Nokshan, the gatekeeper, acted as a bodyguard, especially when Deborah was away from the house. He was a very tall man, weighing about 275 pounds, and moved closer to Deborah to be ready to protect her against any would-be assailants. Nokshan was an expert fighter, and he had received his training in the army of Shamgar, the last Hebrew judge who fought the Philistines. Many people who knew Deborah greeted her and smiled. Various people were saying to each other, "That's Deborah, the prophetess." As Deborah walked in the market, she gazed at the onions, beets, leeks, beans, grapes, nuts, melons, and other produce. All I can think of when I read that was, you got beans, greens, potatoes, you name it. As Deborah walked in the market, she gazed at the onions, beets, leeks, beans, grapes, nuts, melons, and other produce. After she bought a sack full of vegetables, Nokshan fastened them to the donkey. "Can I pay you with these shekels and gerahs?" asked Deborah. "Yes," replied the shopkeeper. Standing on the opposite side of the market were two men. The older man, named Melech, spoke to the other. "That lady over there wearing the green shawl is Deborah. Familiarize yourself with her appearance and keep your ears and eyes open. The Prince Abihu has a secret task for us to do a little later." "Yes, master. Also, he wants to know every important person she meets with. Be very careful and don't let Deborah and her company know that you are watching them." The spies, Melech. After Deborah paid for her produce, she turned around and bumped into a shopper. "Oh, is that you, Oprah?" "Yes." "Ophrah, my bad. Is that you, Ophrah?" "Yes," she said with excitement. "I haven't seen you since mandrakes were 10 gerahs, 10 cents a basket," said Deborah. As she embraced her, Ophrah was a sleep-in house servant for Deborah's brother-in-law Caleb. I've been hearing so many good things about you, Deborah. I've been hearing so many good things about you, Deborah. "How is Caleb?" "I have not heard." "Oh, Ophrah, how did you get that bruise on your arm?" she asked with deep compassion. "Oh, Deborah, you shouldn't ask me," she commented pitifully. "Has Caleb been mistreating you? He supports me and my children. But has he been mistreating you?" Ophrah lowered her head and remained silent. Then Deborah stared at her with empathy. "I understand you can't talk about it because you are afraid that if Caleb finds out, he will punish you." She raised her head and her eyes slightly and looked at Deborah. "Sometimes you just have to bear it," she mumbled weakly. Deborah took a deep breath and exhaled as she placed her arm around Ophrah's shoulders. Both of them walked slowly away from the crowd. Then Deborah spoke again. "I'm sorry for your sake and mine that this has happened to you." "You are sorry for your sake? I don't understand." "It is a long story, but you will understand before the end of many days." Ophrah turned toward her. "So be it, as you have spoken. I think that you will be free of this burden that you have." "Did the voice of God tell you this?" "No, it is just a strong feeling that I have, and I'm usually right." "Yes, you usually are." "Ophrah, We must support one another. What I'm saying is that if things become too unbearable with Caleb, you can always come and work for me. Thank you, Deborah. You are so kind, and it is good to know that I have another way out. Furthermore, I want you to pray daily, and God will answer your prayers. Then both ladies embraced each other and went on their separate ways. As Sarah and Deborah passed by the beggar sitting on the ground, he said, "Alms for the poor, alms for the poor." Noticing him dressed in his dirty, torn clothes, Deborah had compassion for the man and walked over to him and commented, "I spent all of my silver coins, but I can give you some produce." "That is so nice of you," he said with a smile. "Oh, Nakshan, will you bring over some food for this poor man?" "Yes, Deborah, right away." Nakshan went and got the food and set it in front of the beggar. "I thank you so much for your kindness," he said. "You are very welcome and you have a nice smile. What is your name?" "My name is Azuv." "I thank you not only for the food, but also for the conversation." At that moment, Deborah, Nakshan, and Sarah departed and continued down the road. Then Sarah looked at Deborah. "My lady, it shows that you are very compassionate. You are a very compassionate person when you help others. Sarah, the sick, the neglected, and the poor don't want to be ignored. They want to know that we care about them and that we are willing to help. It was good to you. It was good that you stopped to talk to him because you have so much knowledge and wisdom to share. That may be true, Sarah, but people don't care how much we know until they are convinced how much we care. By helping others, by talking less about how bad things are, and doing more to help the sick, the misguided, and the poor, we can build love in the world. When we do this, we show true love. It was now midday, and Deborah and her servants were on their way back home. After reflecting on the letter from Barak, which she received that morning, she was now in the better mood to discuss it. "My lady, before we arrived at the market, you were telling me that the letter you had received from Barak came from Barak, and it seemed, my lady, before we arrived at the market, you were telling me that the letter you had received came from Barak, and it seemed to have disturbed you, did it not?" "Yes, it did. Barak was wounded in battle." "Oh no," she said as she walked, turning her head toward Deborah. "Was it serious?" "No, it was just an arm wound, my lady. Excuse me, arm wound. My lady, because your countenance fell, I thought it was something more serious than that. Could it be that your heart and eyes were drawn to him like a flower is drawn to the shining sun?" "I don't know. I like him, but my life is uncertain." All of a sudden, Deborah, Sarah, and Nakshan heard the sound of horses and a chariot racing rapidly behind them. They moved to the side of the road to let them pass. As the horses raced by, they noticed that the driver was an Egyptian, and he had a whip in his brown, strong right hand, which he cracked at the team of horses. Suddenly, the Egyptian yelled out something in his language. The whip swung around in Deborah's direction and could have struck her in the face, but she ducked down just in time to avoid being hit. "That was close," she said. "Sarah, what did the Egyptian yell out in his language?" She said, "Get out of the way, you peasants." "Oh, Sarah, you are such an asset to me. I am grateful to you. I am grateful that you are able to speak several languages." "Thank you, my lady." After that incident, Deborah and Sarah returned to their previous conversation and continued down the road. "My lady, what did you mean when you said that your life is uncertain?" "I'll reveal it to you when I know more about the problem that is vexing my heart, I promise." "All right. But on the other hand, Barak is a handsome man. Many women would want him." "True. He is handsome. He is a prince. He is a general, and he has a very large estate. But on the other hand, his spirituality is doubtful," she reminded Sarah. "But I am spiritual and in tune with my creator. My mate or husband must also be the same. If he is not, he could make light of my spiritual pursuits and deem them unimportant. What did he say that suggested to you that he was not spiritual enough? Barak told me that if he had half the number of men and chariots that General Sisera had, he would attack now. This was his boasting. Then I told Barak that he would need more than chariots to beat Sisera. His reply to me was, "We will see." You must understand, Sarah. He left God completely out of the picture. Did he mention anything personal about how he felt about you? Yes. He said that he thinks about me every week. He misses me, misses my smile and my tenderness, and he wants me to hold a place in my heart for him. Sarah listened attentively while studying her countenance. Well, will you? I'm not sure. He has a lot of the qualities that I admire, but he conjures up unpleasant feelings in me. Feelings like what, my lady? Feelings like Deborah paused and then continued, like sorrow or death. My lady, where do those feelings come from? They come from my late husband, Lapidoph. As you know, he was killed by Canaanites. Barak fights Canaanites and was recently wounded by them. Deborah stopped walking and stared at Sarah. If I hold a place in my heart for Barak and he falls dead in battle, the emotional pain will be too much. Can you understand my position? Sarah took a deep breath, stared at Deborah, and nodded her head in consent. I understand. They continued to walk along the side of the road, passing by other men, women, and children with their animals traveling north and south on the road. Walking further down the road, Deborah saw a bush of beautiful red roses. She picked some to take home. She pricked her finger on a thorn, and a little blood oozed out. You see, Sarah, we cannot even enjoy the pretty roses without their thorns. Is this the nature of life? It seems that way. I would like to get married again to the right man, but right now, I cannot commit myself to Barak or to any other man because of the problem that is troubling my soul. What problem is that? Sarah, I mentioned to you earlier that I have a problem that troubles my soul, and I promise to reveal it to you as soon, but not right now. This is one of the reasons why I cannot commit myself to anyone. They arrived home late that afternoon while the sun was still up. Sarah and Nakshan performed their usual duties. In the meantime, Deborah had made inspections of her flax and whip factory. Afterwards, her supervisor, Madreach, reported to her. The servants did excellent work today, and they accomplished a lot. Well, let's reward them and send them home early. The servants will like that, he responded, walking away from her to give a good news to the workers. By now, the sun had set, but it was not yet dark. After supper, she reclined on the couch for a few minutes. Not long after, she heard a shout at the front gate, but paid no attention. Thinking that it was one of the servants, then her gatekeeper, Nakshan, called her. Mother Deborah, you have a visitor. It is your brother-in-law, Caleb. Where shall I take him? Caleb, she repeated with surprise. Give him a seat in the dining room and offer him something to eat. I'll be out in a short while. Finally, he shows up when I least expect, she thought. Waiting for his decision for more than 2 years caused her much anguish. She wondered what would be his decision now. Did he have a selfish reason for coming? This was the final moment that Deborah was expecting. Her heart pounded in anticipation of his decision. Sarah came to her room. Can I be of service to you, my lady? Oh, you are perspiring. Sarah pulled out her handkerchief and wiped her forehead. Deborah sat down for a minute. She closed her eyes and thought, I must get control of myself. Whatever happens, it is God's will. He has his purpose in mind, and it is not for me to understand all of his actions at once. Then she got up with confidence and went into the dining room to meet with Caleb. Caleb was about 15 years older than Deborah, and his height was 5 feet 9 inches. He was bald on the front half of his head and was wearing a brown garment with yellow borders. Also, Deborah had heard reports that Caleb squandered his money on senseless pleasures and gambling. He looked physically and emotionally drained, and he was a blotted physician. He was a blotted physical specimen. When she entered the dining room, Caleb's back was to her, and he was looking up at the painting on the wall. It was a painting of the beautiful Jezreel Valley, with Mount Tabor on the north. She labored to speak. Peace be unto you, Caleb. With a smirk on his face, Caleb responded slowly. Peace, Deborah. I was admiring the picture of the Jezreel Valley. It seems so peaceful, explained Caleb, turning to face Deborah. And that seems so contradictory in light of the fact that so many wars have been fought there. I was there during my childhood, and sometimes I feel like I shall return there for some special reason, Deborah added. Deborah, I'm sorry for not contacting you sooner to give you my decision on Levirate marriage. Levirate marriage. What's up, sir? Sit down over there, please. Levirate. Let's see what that is. Levirate marriage. Yeah, you can sit there. That's fine. Levirate. 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 Husbands, brothers. Oh yeah, the law. That's the law. Levirate marriage. Levirate or lever. Husbands, brothers. Akin to. Husbands, brothers. The sometimes compulsory marriage of a widow to a brother of her deceased husband. Deborah, I'm sorry for not contacting you sooner to give you my decision on Levirate marriage. I must fulfill my duty to my deceased brother so he can have an heir. This is our law, he emphasized, as he walked to a shelf and picked up a small scroll of the 5 books of Moses. Before we talk about marriage, I want to talk about another matter. I was at the market in Bethel today, and I met your maidservant, Ophrah. Oh, he almost dropped the scroll and looked up at her with surprise. I suppose she said some bad things about me. No, she didn't. Are there any bad things to say about you? He gave a silly grin and looked away. You know how some women like to gossip and exaggerate. She had a bruise on her arm, and no telling what's on the other parts of her body. Is this an exaggeration? How did she get the bruise, Caleb? He stuttered in the search for an answer. She fell. Yes, she fell down the stairs. Do you expect me to believe that? If Ophrah had fallen down the stairs, she would have told me. It is not my concern what you believe. But you came here expecting me to agree to Levirate marriage. How can I do this knowing that you abuse your maidservant? If I marry you, would you abuse me also? I don't intend to abuse you. You don't intend to. By the way, it has been 3 years since your brother's death. You could have given me your decision earlier, she pointed out, walking to a large cedar table and took out 3 nuts from a clay bowl. I wrote you 3 times in 3 years. All you could say was that you were busy and that you would let me know soon. Feeling guilty, Caleb bowed his head in shame. Well, I was busy. You could have given me your decision 3 years ago, or 2 years ago, or even 1 year ago, she jeered, placing the 3 nuts back in the bowl. Why at this time, Caleb? Why now? She looked at his pot belly and waited for an answer. He stuttered, I neglected to give you my decision earlier, but I'm here now, ready to fulfill the law. You see, our marriage can increase and combine our assets, and I can get out. Caleb paused, making a slip of the tongue. Out of debt, you mean, don't you? I understand you came here now to make a proposal of marriage to help you get out of debt, concluded Deborah, staring at him with distrust. The fact remains that you do have a legal obligation to marry me regardless of what you imply that your motives are. He rasped with a cunning smile, placing the scroll back on the shelf. What will it be, Deborah? Give me a little time for meditation. I shall return shortly, then I'll give you my answer. Deborah went into her room, sat on the soft mat, folded her legs with her back erect, took a deep breath, and exhaled slowly. After she had relaxed, she invoked the Lord of creation and the God of her ancestors. At last, there was a total silence in the depths of the darkness. At that moment, the voice uttered, do what you know is right, and then let God work out his purpose. After the meditation and prayer, Deborah returned to the dining room. As soon as she walked in, Caleb stood up. He gazed at Deborah with a long stare as if he had seen a ghost. His hands trembled as Deborah spoke. I agreed to marry you, to fulfill our customs, not because I trust or love you. He uttered softly. He said that Levirate marriage had anything to do with love. Who said the Levirate marriage had anything to do with love? I get your point, but with most women, love is foremost. Do you have a date in mind? He stood still and reflected for a little while. Will 6 months from now be fine? I think so. In a hurry to leave, Caleb said, I'll contact you to discuss the plans. Peace be with you. Deborah sat down and thought about the conversation she had with Caleb. It bothered her, and she wanted to talk about it. Then she remembered that she had promised Sarah to reveal to her what was troubling her soul, and there was no better time than now. Hearing her handmaid in the next room, Deborah called, Sarah, will you please come here? As Sarah entered the dining room, she bowed slightly and asked, what can I bring you, my lady? I don't want you to bring me anything. I want you to give me your ear. Oh, my lady, I'm at your service. Let's go outside into the back courtyard, Deborah suggested. The night was clear. The stars were shining bright and the moon was full. At last, Deborah was full of things to say. Sarah, I told you that I would soon reveal to you the things that have been troubling my soul. Now I'm ready to talk. My deceased husband's brother, Caleb, visited me earlier this evening and asked me to marry him. I agreed to do so. But I'm not in love with him. Sarah displayed an earnest desire to help. Why did you agree then? I am bound to do so under our law of Levirate marriage. That's right. There is a law that stipulates that you must marry your deceased husband's next of kin. Yes, but it is conditional. What do you mean by conditional? If a brother dies without a male heir, His brother must marry his wife, and the firstborn male, which she gives birth to, shall succeed in the name of the dead brother, so that his name will not be blotted out of Israel. Is there any other way out of this marriage? Only if he refuses, and this he has not done. Finally, there is a divine way out, but that is left up to God to work out his plan. Deborah felt confused and emotionally torn between disobeying the customs and laws of her people, or on the other hand, marrying a man she did not love. She knew that if she refused, she would be denounced as a fraud and disgraced in the eyesight of her people. In view of this, Deborah poured out her soul unto the Lord. Oh, my heavenly Father, why couldn't there have been another man that I could have loved? Oh, Lord, I beseech thee, hear my cry and deliver me from this awful pain, she murmured as tears ran down her cheeks. That was a very touching prayer, my lady. Then she embraced her. And that was chapter 5 and chapter 6.
Are you done, Daddy?
Yes, sir, I'm done, son. That was the end.
Go outside and then we can go outside.
Yes, sir. We'll go outside. Let me finish. All right. That was the end of chapter 5 and chapter 6 of Barak and Deborah United by Mary L.WINDSOR and Dr. Rudolph R.WINDOR. Man, Deborah got some things to think about. And I bet from what the back said, Barak gonna be tripping when he find out.
I think Coco's gonna go.
But we'll see. We'll see. Yes, sir. But you better not lose him. No. He cannot go outside. No, sir. He cannot. I'm gonna solve that problem right now. Because I don't want to hear nothing if you lose him, and then you're gonna be crying if you can't find him. Yes, sir.
I will too.
That's right. You'll be crying and asking why they did this. So no, sir, you cannot bring him outside. But yeah, so far so good, man. So far so good. A lot of things going on. A lot of things going on in Barak and Deborah United. We see a lot of wickedness as well going on in Israel, similar to the things that's happening today. Definitely a lot of stuff to think about.
Yeah, definitely have to think about.
Can you do some of the things that she said to do to help make the nation better, to help show love to your people, to help stop the crimes and other things, to bring orderliness back to the society? Yeah. We'll come back next time. Next time with the reading with Shilo. Next time on Reading with Shilo, we'll come back with chapter 7 and chapter 8. Oh, you woke up right on time, man. Right on time, my boy.
Yeah, right on time, man.
Next time, chapter 7 and chapter 8. Most likely tomorrow before the Sabbath kicks in. We'll see. We'll see, man. We'll see how things go.
You see how things go.
I don't want to promise we'll come back tonight. But we'll see. But that's it for now, man. Shalom, everybody. Shalom, everybody.
Shalom.
Thank you for listening in. DJ out. Welcome to all the new subscribers as well. I hope you enjoyed it. We'll keep pushing so we can go ahead and get through the book. And we're moving pretty good right now.
I'm moving pretty good right now.
But Shilo out, man.
DJ out.
That's right. Till next time.
Till next time.
Shalom.
Shalom.